Hi guys. So today I just want to have a bit of story time really. We're on a Tuesday evening and it's not been the best day today really. Well, not necessarily the worst day for weather. It's not rained, it's not been cold, but it's just been dark and miserable all day. So I just thought we'll go for a drive, put the lights on, go for a drive in the country lanes and we'll just have a bit of a chat really. Tell a few stories about when I used to be a used car dealer. So now I review cars, and this is a passion of mine. It's a hobby, it's not my day job. My day job's in IT, but this is a passion of mine and I'm hoping to grow my YouTube channel as a result of it. But back in the day, I used to have a used car dealership, me and two other friends. One of the friends wanted to get into business. I've always had my own business, and the other friend was really passionate about cars like me, so we decided to come together and invest some money and see what we could do really. So we put £5,000 in each, and we went out and we went to a local auction house in Manchester called Studley Vehicle Auctions, and we picked up two Mercedes A-classes. They were, I think, a W Reg, so a year 2000, and a 2003 A-class. And we bid on these two cars, we won them. We paid, I don't know, we might have paid £250, £300 each for them. So we bought them, and what we did at first was we parked them on my mum's drive. It's a long drive, it'll fit 3 or 4 cars on, so we said, right, great, we'll stick them on the back of there. At the time, the laws have changed a lot now in regards to tax on vehicles and things like that, which I'll come to, and one of the reasons we stopped doing it. But at the time, you could buy a car from auction and it'd have MOT on it, it'd have tax on it, and you'd need a motor trader's policy to drive them. But aside from that, you could drive them. If they had tax on them, then happy days, you know, you could drive along, you could park them on the road, you could advertise them with a sticker in the window, all this sort of stuff. So what we did, we bought these two A-classes, well, we bid on these two A-classes, won the auction, we went to collect them, so we took one home first. That was a manual, I forget the trim level name, but it was a basic wind down windows, and I think it had central locking. It was a nice clean car, but it was just very basic. It needed a clean and a polish, and we managed to sell that for about £200-300 profit. But the other car that we paid £250-300 for was a lower mileage example. So I think the first one had done about 100,000. This one had only done about maybe 40,000, something like that. And it was an automatic, and it was a avant-garde spec. So at the time, that was the term that Mercedes used for their top spec premium trim line on a vehicle. So we were quite excited because we were thinking, well, it's low mileage, it was in good condition, it's the automatic, which is always more desirable and costs a little bit more, and it was the avant-garde, it was the high specs. So we thought we can probably sell this for about £1,200, and we paid £300-400. At the time, we were a bit wet behind the ears and a bit naive and a bit new to it all, and we didn't realise there was a good reason why this thing had gone for £350. So we went back to pick it up again. A friend drove there, I drove back in whatever we collected. So we gets in this thing, sets off down Rochdale Road, coming out of Manchester back, and he rings me and he says, "Why are you going so slow?" And I said, "It's stuck." I said, "It says F on the screen, on the display between the clocks." So I said, "I'm guessing F means fault." I said, "I don't know." I said, "But it won't go any faster than sort of 20 mile an hour. It'd go in reverse and it'd go into gear and it'd go into neutral and park." So Googles it when I get home. Turns out it's stuck in second gear, and it's sort of a safety mode, a limp home mode almost sort of thing with the car. And the reason being, there's a fault with the gearbox, and so as not to do any damage, it stays in second gear and it won't let you go any higher than that. So I'd bought several cars in the past and had dealings with this Mercedes specialist. The guy worked for Mercedes at the time, and he had his own business as well, and it was a Mercedes Master Tech. So I rang him up and I said to him, "I've got this vehicle, Mercedes A-Class, got this F on the thing, what's the situation?" And he said, "You're going to need a new gearbox." So I was like, so I'm thinking, whether we need a new gearbox or a second-hand gearbox off a breaker's yard or whatever it is, it's not going to be a cheap fix, this. Obviously, the labour involved in changing the gearbox, it wasn't something we could do on the drive. With the best of intentions or best will in the world, we're not going to be able to drop a gearbox out of something and change it. So I started looking for it, and I said to him, "Is there anything else it could be?" And he says, "No, it needs a new box." So, as I said, I work in IT, I've got a logical mind, I've got a troubleshooting mind, and I thought, well, it can't be just that, surely. There's got to be other avenues we can explore. So after 3-4 hours on the internet, trawling through things, I found this forum, and this guy was suggesting that they'd had a similar problem. And what had happened was the cup holder was in the dashboard, and it was right above the gear select lever. And what he said happened with them was people would have a coffee in there, a Coke in there, or whatever, and it'd drip, through the cup holder, and it'd drip into into where the shifter was. And he said, what you need to do is take all the centre console apart, get the covering off the shifter. He said, and inside there's a circuit, a little printed circuit board, PCB. He said, and that'll be covered in muck and bullets, basically. Dust that's accumulated over the years, but the sugar from coffee and tea and all that sort of stuff. And he said, it'll have corrosion on the board. So I used to have an iPhone repair business as well. So when I had the iPhone repair business, I was used to soldering on new SIM card sockets. I was used to fixing water damage on logic boards and things like that. So I've had experience with logic boards. So anyway, took this chip out, cleans it up with alcohol and a brush, and dries it with a hairdryer, gets it all nice and dry, puts it back in, starts the engine, and would you believe, absolutely fine. Goes into D, goes through all the gears absolutely perfectly, and the car was absolutely in brilliant condition. Aside from the fault with the gearbox, it would have never belonged in an auction. It wouldn't have gone there, because you would have made top money for this vehicle because it was in good condition, and we did. We went on to sell the thing for about 1,200 quid. So that was our sort of first experience of what on earth have we done here, to wow, we've really turned this around. So that sort of gave us a bit of a kick to say, yeah, let's try this. So we bought another 2 vehicles or so, and then we decided we needed to get ourselves a bit of a premises. So there was a mill locally that had an old mill that had been split into units inside. So we managed to secure this unit at the back, and I managed to knock the price down based on the fact that it was falling apart. It was a bit battered and needed a lick of paint. And I said, we'll do all that. It was full of rubbish as well. We'll empty the rubbish, we'll give it a lick of paint, we'll tidy it up, we'll make it look presentable. It had this little office at the front as well. It had a shared toilet in the mill, and I said, well, we'll make it work. And it was a case of, there was a roller shutter door on it, and it was a case of we could probably fit, let me just have a think, I bet we could fit 10 cars in there at the time, maybe 8. So we got very good, we were very creative at parking, and used to sort of squeezing them in with something that you could fit a cigarette paper between them, they were that close together. And if someone came to view one at the back, everything had to come out before you could get to that one, and outside was a bit of a nightmare. There was a bit of a car park, but everyone for all these different units parked on there, so it was a bit of to and fro and a bit of a faff, but it worked. And we'd work till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night doing it, because we were working it around our regular jobs, and we were advertising on Gumtree. And at the time with Gumtree, you could list so many cars for free, and then once you did your free ones, you had to pay for a premium account. So we'd end up creating several Gumshare accounts so that we wouldn't have to actually pay for it. We tried Auto Trader and paying. We tried using eBay Marketplace, that was quite successful. Facebook Marketplace wasn't really a thing at the time. Now that'd be a great place to sell them. So we did all these different things, and we got a Mark 1 MR2, Toyota MR2, again with the pop-up headlights, and I think it had the removable roof on it, and it was stunning. It was in red, and a guy came, I remember the guy's name, he came all the way from Scotland to buy this thing, and he test drove it, and he loved it, and he had a baby on the way, and his wife saying to him, why we're buying a 2-seater car, but he loved it, and he was passionate about the car, and we were passionate about the car, and we had all sorts of hiccups along the way. We bought a few cars from Studley Vehicle Auctions, and then we moved to British Car Auctions, which is branches all over the UK, and there's one across the road in Bellevue and Manchester. So we bought a few cars from there, we bought vans from there, and they were a bit more expensive cars, and they tended to be cars that were a little bit more reliable and sort of had been ex-lease cars and things like that, so you could get things that were a little bit more polished and as it were. But I think the mistake we made at first was we were buying cars. I remember one of the first cars we bought was a Volkswagen Touareg, and we paid about £4,000 for this, which we managed to retail for about £5,000, maybe £5,500, which was great. But when we were doing that calibre of car, there was a few problems we had. One, we could only have 2 or 3 cars, because if we were spending £5,000 on a car, we'd only put 15,000 in. We made a little bit of money, but we were spending, our operating costs were about £2,000 a month. We had the rent on the unit, we had insurance, we had trade plates, we had auction fees. There was a lot of costs that went with it, and we sort of had to be mindful of that. So these £5,000 cars, there were a few things that happened with them. One, you had a lot of cash tied up in a vehicle. 2, they didn't sell quite as quick as a cheap car, so you might be sat on it for a few months, which wasn't ideal. And 3, because it's £5,000's not disposable income to most people anyway, and £5,000 is something where people would say, well, that's a lot of money. So for a lot of money, they would want a lot of car, which we're getting with the Volkswagen Touareg. But, and bearing in mind, this Touareg might have done 120,000 miles, but that was 5 grand's worth. If they was paying 10 grand's worth, they could have got 140,000 miles. So it was still an absolute bargain. But they wanted that car because they were spending 5 grand to not have a mark on it. There's no scratches anywhere on it. Its wheels were perfect. They didn't need any sort of refurb. They had everything on the car worked. And the issue is, as soon as you become a car dealer and you're not an individual doing it, then you have to start making sure that you're putting a 6-month warranty on the thing. And if you don't, trading standards can come after you and all sorts of headaches. So we had to put a 6-month warranty on these things, which, if we're putting 6 months warranty on something that's done 120,000 miles and it's 10 years old, and things can go wrong. Things can go wrong with any car, things can go wrong with new cars, but that's going to start eating into your profit. So what we decided to do is we started to look at older cars. We looked at commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles are great. So we had an XR-AC van, I think it was 4 years old. It was bright orange, but it sold. The guy who bought it had a bright orange bike and it was to go on the back of it. That was great. You know, it had been looked after, it had been maintained. We had, I think, 3 keys for the thing. It had toolboxes inside that we could sell separately. That was a dream. We bought an old meat wagon that had been used for a refrigerated van. That was great. Someone come and bought that straight away. We had an X-Speed camera van that someone went to convert into a bit of a fishing van to have a day van while they were fishing, so that was great. We had a transit tipper like you'd use for collecting scrap. We had all sorts of bits and bats, but the commercials worked really well. And then the next thing we did was we started buying older cars. So we'd buy things like cars that we could get from the auction for about £200, and we'd get them back and we'd give them a clean, but we wouldn't go to town, we wouldn't polish them. We'd vacuum them inside and we'd jet wash them and dry them. We wouldn't polish them. And if someone got there and the wing mirror had been taped on and one of the wheel trims was missing and the sunroof didn't really open anymore, people weren't bothered because we picked them up for 200 quid. We were selling them for 400 quid, so we were doubling our money. They were getting an absolute bargain of a car for 400 quid that worked, was reliable, would get them from A to B. It wasn't a polished article, but they were spending 400 quid. They weren't bothered. As long as that thing saw them until its next MOT, which might have been 10 months away, they were happy as Larry, because at the time, they could then weigh that in for 280, 300 quid scrap, and they paid, you know, £100 for 10 months worth of motoring. So they were made up with this thing. We actually had a few people who became regular customers and bought cars for different members of the family and friends, and when that car had seen its best, they'd come back and get another one, and they were happy with that, and we were happy with that, and that worked well. And on the back of that, we were selling about 10 cars a week like that, which was great because we were doubling our money. So we pay 200, we make 200, 10 cars a week, £2 grand a week, so we're doing well with that. £2 grand a month operating costs, £6 grand profit before tax. It was working well. Next thing we did was I went and bought a recovery truck. It was an old Transit G-Reg Smiley. They call them the Smiley because the way the lights and grille was. Recovery truck. It was bright yellow, like bumblebee yellow, with black stripes down the side, and the back doors, they didn't have a lock on the outside. You sort of manipulated them with a penknife to open the back door, so it wasn't the most secure thing in the world. You couldn't leave anything valuable inside, but in the back we used to keep the ramps for getting the vehicles on the back of it. We used to keep the lashing straps for keeping the vehicle on the back of the bed, so you'd fasten it around the wishbones and secure it to it. We'd keep some sort of water. We'd put the jump pack in the back in case the vehicle, when we got there, had broke down and needed jumping because its battery was flat. We'd carry some oil in there. We'd carry a tyre iron, a jack, like random things like that really that we might need while we're out and about. Some rope, a flashing light. But like I said, in the main, you couldn't leave anything too valuable in there. We kept it inside the unit at night times, and it was being parked in the car park at the auction, so it wasn't really on the road that often. But just in case it was, you know, you just had to be mindful it wasn't the most secure vehicle in the world. You started it up, we reckon it had done about 250, 300,000 miles. It's hard to tell because in the old Transits, once the clock hits 100,000 miles, it starts again at 0. So you have to be really careful when you go and view one of these things that you don't think, wow, Mr. G-Reg from 1990 and it's only done 33,000 miles, because actually it's likely done 200, 300, 400 to 30,000 miles. So we picked this up, we got it for about 700 quid, something like that. And 11 months MOT on it. And it was great. And you'd start it up, it'd start first turn of the key, and if you come off the clutch, I think it was, yeah, if you come off the clutch, like a traffic light, something like that, it would shake and bang, and you'd be sat like that at the lights, you know. And if you drop the clutch, it'd make it go a bit quieter. It wasn't quiet, but it'd make it go a bit quieter. And it was just a fantastic van, and we called it Rosie. And it was just brilliant. People used to look at it and think, you'd turn up to the auctions in that, and people would be turning up in brand new Mercedes Sprinters that were, you know, that had fit a Transit on the back of it. Ours would fit like an Astra van, and it'd fit a car on it. I think we had Volvo V40 estate on it once, but apart from that, it wouldn't really got much bigger than that. Didn't matter what was on the back of it, whether it was a smart car or an Astra van, it'd still only go 50 mile an hour. But it was just dead reliable and worked, and there was just didn't have power steering. There was just something nice about it. You didn't have to worry about the battery being flat or it not starting or anything like that. It wasn't particularly dear to run. I forget what engine was in it now. But it was just a great car, and it was just a great van, and we loved it, and it was brilliant. And what that enabled us to do then was, as I said, we were doing this round our own. We were doing this around 9-to-5s. So what that enabled us to do was go to the auction on a Wednesday night and a Monday night. We bid on cars. We might win 7 or 8 cars, and then whoever could, the next day or the next few days, would take the recovery truck down to the auctions, pick the vehicles up, bring them back. The other person would clean them up and get them ready and get them listed, and we'd get them on them. And I really enjoyed it, and my partners really enjoyed it as well. We had good fun doing it, and we had cars break down on us that we had to crawl underneath at Asda car parks and try and resurrect them and fix them for the customer. And we had vehicles that came back because there was things wrong with them, and we obviously took them back, and if someone didn't want to have it repaired, we'd just stand on it and we'd refund them, and we did everything by the book, and we looked after people, and we had a loyal customer base as a result. But sometimes these can cost money and make the business sort of no longer financially viable, but we did do well with it, and we enjoyed it. And there was some hairy moments as well where we're probably in situations we shouldn't have been in. We moved into a bigger unit. At the same mill, there was a really big unit came available that had sort of 7 toilets in it and 2 offices and a storeroom, and could fit sort of 25 cars, and we took that one over for the 25 cars, obviously not for the 7 toilets. And you know, that helped because we could stand on more stock then that was around that sort of value, and it just worked well. And if we got the bigger things like the meat wagon, the meat van, and the tipper and things like that, we could accommodate all that. So it worked really well. But there was a couple of times where people wanted to come and view cars at 11 o'clock at night. Well, we were working a 9-to-5, so 11 o'clock at night worked for us, and there'd be sort of 5 people turned up to view a car at 11 o'clock at night together, and you were thinking, if these people decide they're going to take this car from us, they could probably take this car from us, you know. And there was just some situations where you thought, this isn't the best really, it's not a good idea to be in a unit in the middle of the night, you know, with 5 other people on your own. We had some good laughs, we met some amazing people. It was a really, really good time. But as I say, what happened was the recession hit, the government were putting scrappage incentives on new vehicles, so used vehicles weren't selling. We stopped trading a couple of months after Carcraft, which was, again, there's another Manchester-based name. They actually owned We Buy Any Cars, so you've probably heard of them if you're in the UK. And Carcraft had a massive site at Rochdale, and we used to actually, back in the day, they used to have trade sales, so they'd sell their trade-ins, and you could go to an auction and do a sealed bid on vehicles, and we got some bargains from that. We used to buy big engine stuff that other traders weren't interested in touching, so like I think it was a 4 litre or 4.4 Jeep Grand Cherokee we bought once, and it come with tax and it come with MLT, and we paid about £110 for it because no one else would touch it, and we managed to sell it for about 500 quid, and it was brilliant. They were built like tanks, it was great. But people didn't want to entertain it because they thought it was a bit big, and it's a bit, no one's going to buy that with that big daft engine on it. Well, people did. So then Carcraft decided that they were going to put their vehicles through BCA, so we'd see them coming through there as well. I think they were called CC Trade Auctions, or I can't remember what they were called. Anyway, they used to put their vehicles through there. You'd have Arnold Clark in there, you'd have Lex Auto Lease, you'd have different people going through there. But Carcraft went bump. They just couldn't sustain. The sales at the time were too low, and that's what we were seeing. We went from 10 vehicles a week to sort of 1 a fortnight, and we'd have a car like, for example, a Golf Mark 4 GTI that we'd know all day long was worth 1,200 quid and would sell quickly, and we'd advertise it at £1,000, and it wouldn't sell, and we think, well, we'll drop it to 800, 700, 600, 500, it still wouldn't sell, and we're like, there's a real issue here, we're not even getting calls on this vehicle at £500 that's worth £1,200, and it wasn't that how the car price had fell, it wasn't anything to do with that, it was to do with the fact people weren't buying used cars, and it was a case of if we'd have been able to ride that out for 6 to 12 months, we'd have been absolutely fine, and we'd probably still be trading now. But unfortunately, at £2,000 a month costs, and we'd been doing it about 18 months, 2 years at a time, but we were still relatively in our infancy and sort of paying back ourselves what we borrowed, and and investing in stock, and we were just sat on stock, and as I said, the tax and MOT that you used to get with the vehicles was running out, so that made it less desirable for someone. So there was just all them things really that were against us, and it didn't work well. The other thing that had happened which was against us was the government had just introduced the fact that you couldn't, we did have trade plates as well, so we could move vehicles about with the trade plates on even if they didn't have any tax, but the government had decided that once you sell a vehicle, or once you trade in a vehicle at an auction or anything like that, the tax gets refunded to you, so the vehicle has no tax on it, which sounds great if you're selling a vehicle, but the problem then becomes that whoever's bought this vehicle, like from an auction house or something like that, can't do a great deal with it. It's got to be kept off the road, it's got to be either declared as stolen or registered off-road, and like I said, we could drive it about with our trade plates and there was no issue there, but we only had one set of trade plates between 3 of us to go and collect vehicles, so if one had the recovery truck and one was driving one of the trade plates, that wasn't too bad. But the other thing we used to do, aside from Gumtree and Auto Trader and eBay and things like that, was we'd go and park them up in locations at the side of the road where we knew it had a lot of footfall. We parked the vehicle up there with a sign in the window saying the spec of the car, all the features of it, the price of it, and a phone number for them to contact us on. And people would ring and say, oh, I've seen this car in the street. Backfired a couple of times because we parked it in quite a busy street, and a wagon went past and took its wing mirror off. I remember that, going back and picking a Polo's wing mirror up off the floor and thinking, get one for scrapping out and fasten this back on and everything else that goes with it. But yeah, in the main that worked really well, so once they took that tax thing away from you, it was a bit of a problem really. So they were sort of the reasons why we stopped doing it really, but I've still always had this passion for cars, and I've loved the opportunity of selling a car when I've been changing my car personally and things like that, because I love the engaging with the person and selling something. I love selling, and I love the fact that they try and knock you down a bit and you try and say, well, no, because of this, this and this, or you might meet them part way, or you engage in that. And when I'm buying something, I always try and negotiate on price, and it always works. You always manage to get a better price. I was negotiating on I have a self-storage unit where I store some stuff, and I'm always buying and selling bits, and I needed to expand it and get a bigger unit the other day, so I went in and said to them, how much would it be to double the unit size? And it's pretty much double the price. I said, well, I've been here sort of 6 years now, and it's a bit unfair that you're doubling the price of the unit for double the space. So I negotiated the price, and she said, okay, well, I can do it for, I think she knocked about 60 quid off a month. So then I said, no, I'm still not happy, and then she brought it down to 80 quid off a month. And then I said, could you knock an extra 5 off? And she said, I don't know, I'm really out on this deal now. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, if you knock the 5 off, we'll do it. If you don't, I'm going to have a good think about it. So she said, well, I need to get permission for that. So I said, well, that's fine. I said, but if you do, I said, we'll go for it. So she said, right, well, what we'll do is we'll do it at that price, and I'll just sort of double check to make sure it's okay, but I'm sure it will be. And I just saved myself all that money for nothing, for just a conversation, a polite conversation. I'd never be funny with someone and, start shouting the odds, but that conversation just led to, a significant monthly saving. And I think that's the same with buying a car. There's always money to be saved, especially if we're coming from a main dealer. And when selling a car, I don't mind someone knocking a bit off and us having that conversation and building a bit of rapport with the person and things like that. So I do miss that and enjoy that, and any opportunity I get to sell something I enjoy. But that passion and love for cars has still remained and will always remain, and I'm trying to pass that down to my daughter now. She's 5 and she's interested in cars, and she likes spotting different ones, and she likes understanding things about cars and how things work, and she's got a very logical mind as well. And She knows which cars are reliable and which cars aren't. And at the moment, she's obsessed with 7-seater cars. So she loves this Discovery I'm in right now because she wants to sit in the very back on the very back seats. The middle row's got rear entertainment, but she wants to sit right on the back in the back seats. And she's yelling to the front of the car, "Daddy this, Daddy that." But she just loves being back there and just thinks that this is miles more desirable to her than a Porsche and a Ferrari because it's got 7 seats. So I'm trying to sort of guide her a little bit in what are good cars and bad cars, but there's nothing wrong with obviously a Discovery 4. It's a fantastic vehicle, and I love the ride height, and I love driving something like this, and I like a big vehicle. And I think the fact that it can go anywhere and do anything you need of it, and it's great for a tip run, it's great for going on holidays, it's great for if you need to go off-roading, but off-road and in different conditions, snow and ice comes, it can cope with them. Like I say, we've got rear entertainment and the thing, tons of luxury. We've got these quilted diamond stitched leather seats, we've got heated seats, we've got sat nav, we've got Bluetooth audio, we've got Bluetooth phone. It's got, you know, it's got a plethora of features and comforts and luxury, and it's one of my favourite vehicles really, a Discovery. I think it really is. I really do like Range Rovers, but I think this is a little bit more understated. It's not in your face being a Chelsea tractor that everyone desires and everyone wants. It's something that, whilst it's got the same, maybe not quite the same level of luxury and comfort inside, it's not far off, but it's a very capable vehicle. It's got the 7 seats. How often do I need 7 seats when there's me, my partner and my daughter? Not very often, but should the need arise 2-3 times a year, you've got the 7 seats and you're not thinking I need to do 2 trips. But the 7 seats also means a massive great big boot, which I do tend to need. I'm always buying and selling things, I'm always picking things up. Past couple of weeks I've been buying and selling cement mixers, so I've been picking cement mixers up and selling them. Well, I can just throw them in the boot. I've also been buying broken Henry vacuum cleaners and Dyson vacuum cleaners and fixing them and selling them. Again, tons of room, I can go and get 10 at a time and throw them in the back. Couldn't really be doing that if I was driving a Vauxhall Adam that's just gone past, you know. So yeah, I do love vehicles like this, and yeah, that passion hopefully is rubbed off into something now that's such a hobby and a desire and a love, and I get to drive some really, really nice cars on this channel and for this, you know, for this purpose, and I enjoy what I do, and hopefully that comes across in the channel and you enjoy it. If you've liked this video, please do smash that like button because it really helps me rank more videos and bring better content out there. And if you do enjoy the content I produce, please do consider subscribing and ringing that bell so that you get notified as soon as I drop new content, because I do try and drop a real diverse mixed bag of content. I don't want to be producing the same old thing and, you know, taking you out in 15 different Range Rovers and 10 different Mercs, and I'm not saying over the lifetime of the channel we won't cover that, but I want to be a bit different and bring in, again, not just a supercar channel and not just a SUV channel, not just an electric channel, a real mixed bag, because I love a mixed bag. I love a lot of different things. I love, you know, hatchbacks for different reasons, and I love old cars for different reasons, like classics, but I also love, you know, for example, I did a review the other day in the Mark 1 Jaguar XF in 2015. They brought out a newer one since, which a lot of people prefer, but I like that Mark 1, and there's a lot of reasons why I like that one. I'll link it in the card now so you can have a nosy, but I think it's a great car, and I like telling the story and explaining myself and explaining why, and people will disagree with me and people will agree with me. I don't care, I don't mind. Please get involved, talk in the comments about it, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. So until next time, I'll see you all very soon.